Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here. I have a question for everybody out there listening. Have you ever created a character that you knew was a little bit funky, a little bit chunky, and a little bit different, but you just said, man, that's really cool either way? Like a gelatinous cube that was smallified, a teeny tiny one that wanted to be a bard or had high aspirations to become this creature of grand sentience. Who knows? But either way, this is the topic of the day. What is the weirdest character concept you've come up with? Part 2. I have a small collection for you. A life domain Kalashtar cleric who spent 6 years of her life as what amounts to an NPC healer, till her church was burned down, leaving her as the only living cleric of her goddess. She set out not for riches or to make a name for herself, but because her patron told her to go try to get the adventurers to stop being such edgy murder hobos. As a result of her time spent healing foolish adventurers who told her about how this never happens to me, she knows a lot of things not to do in dungeons. She moves carefully in tight hallways, never enters small rooms without checking top to bottom for traps, more so if there is loot in there, and refuses to let anyone touch any chests before she can throw a pack of rations at it for fear it may be a mimic. A human mastermind rogue whose family was killed by bandits. Not his parents when he was a kid, but his wife and son when he was 35. Rather than become a brooding pickpocket assassin, he now travels the world teaching people how to defend themselves without taking a life, so that nobody need feel the pain he felt. He did catch the bandits, but did so with the help of the local guards. He made sure they were arrested and given a fair trial. A human divination wizard who thinks all the world, including himself and his seances, is merely a Magic the Gathering type card game being played by two immortals. Nothing at all can convince him otherwise. He does not think he or anyone else exists or has any sort of free will. What's more, he believes that his card is owned by the opponent of the one imagining him, and that when he looks into the future, the player is using a mirror to look at his opponent's hand. A lawful evil life domain dwarven cleric who holds that all life has value in the most literal way possible. He heals people not because he cares about them, but because they are investments that are still paying out. He is able to keep his divine power as his patron is basically Ayn Rand if she beat up Mercy and stole all of her gear. A changeling circle of the moon criminal druid named Pawn, who got grumpy with people's opinions on changelings, and the fact they were trying to hunt her down for all her crimes, and wandered off into the woods to get drunk and wild shape into a goat. She gets bored easily and uses alcohol to try and get a sense of happy she rarely ever feels. So with the feelings of sad and the feelings of bored, she decided to combat this by becoming the embodiment of chaotic stupid, as well as an alcoholic and a criminal, no longer caring about anything. Now, picture, if you will, a drunk changeling running around in true form after refusing to pay for her drinks, running into the ocean, face-planting, forcing the DM to spend an hour describing the taste of sand, cutting the arm off a fish person, convincing the fish people that Pawn is God and that they are goldfish, then turning into a woolen animal before disappearing back into her woods, all in absolutely deadpan. A slightly sad character if you think about it, but one I enjoy playing. A druid that likes saying, "Dear God," at dramatic moments because he worships the dear God. Here's a summary of the stupid character I made. Ooh, I'm excited. A human bard rogue who is obsessed with the concept of death and wants to be a necromancer, but cannot understand how it works. They joined the party because they were going to join a D&D campaign and accidentally met the party thinking they were the campaign. They also do not believe in dragons despite having a pet baby dragon. My weirdest character concept was Drick, a big and ripped Shadar Kai elf that wore black, looked menacing as f***, and was a dual-wielding barbarian. To amp up the edginess, I described him as having his lips sewn shut, so he wouldn't talk. I was trying to overplay the edge to piss off my friends. I played him as the silent edgelord, a though cooperative and not a murder hobo, for a session and a half, when we had to sneak into a fort to retrieve some prisoner. We were caught by guards who asked us to state our business. The warlock pissed his deception check, and before the druid try himself, I asked if I could roll performance. The players looked at me bewildered, but the DM guessed what I was about to do and allowed it. I rolled like an 18 with a -1 for charisma and no proficiency. Drick began explaining to the guards the whole story by means of a complex miming act. I had to bust out some bullshit mime moves for the table. We laughed our asses off, and the DM ruled that the guards were moved by my tale and let us leave. We had to regroup and try the mission later, but since then, every time Drick had to communicate, a performance check ensued. So Drick, the edgelord barbarian, awkward mime. An overweight artificer tabaxi who was an absolute nerd and otaku. He collects trading cards of famous adventurers, watches cartoons and anime on the Scry Vision. My favorite thing about him, though, is that he made himself a Super Sentai-esque Power Rangers suit that he dons whenever going into battle. He doesn't do anything, but he claims that it makes him stronger anyway. Furbolg Fey Wanderer. Imagine, if you will, a 9-foot, 1-inch tall, blue-skinned behemoth with a scimitar on either hip. He walks up to you. Your brain is telling you to run as this inexplicable fear comes over you, but your legs are paralyzed with fear. As he reaches for his waist, you know you're done for when he pulls out a wallet. Your wallet. You quickly realize the man was simply trying to return your lost wallet. You thank him and quickly walk away, noting how terrifying yet kind he was. The build. With Tasha's, we can take Furbolg and bump up Dex and Wiz. Next, with Canny, we can take expertise and intimidation. Then we go to level 3 to take the Fey Wanderer subclass, which allows us to add wisdom to charisma checks. So at 3, with 16 wisdom and 12 charisma, we can have +8 to intimidation checks. So imagine the sweetest Furbolg scaring away almost everybody he meets. The dual wielding is optional, I just think it fits. This has to be the most multi-classing I've ever seen in my entire life as a narrator. I think my weirdest character concept that I've come up with is a wild magic sorcerer, battlesmith, artificer, college of creation bard multi-class, half-elf teenager named Vander. Now that was a mouthful. Now the thing with Vander, he's small, he's scrawny, but he thought that becoming an artificer would help him tame his wild magic. He thought becoming a bard would tame it too. Instead, it has made his magic even more of a mess, with his inventions often having some unintended magical effect from his wild magic, and his bard magic ending up with the same instability. He's essentially a gifted kid in that he's highly intelligent and very charismatic to boot, but very childish as well, as he was very sheltered by his trickery cleric dad. A kobold monk that uses an 8th staff, which is basically just a glorified small tree branch, because regular quarterstaffs are too large for him. My weirdest character is still, by far, Black Rose. Basically, imagine a dragonborn, red. Let's just say sorcerer, sailor background, and then she dies. She promptly proceeds to come back to life as either a red or black dragonborn, stats, class, and background all completely randomized. She's been cursed for centuries, and she's barely holding it together. She's an alcoholic, but that's to be expected of, well, this. Tabaxi named Philip Morris. He was raised by living plants, and thinks he is a tobacco plant. He smacks cigars and cigarettes or any tobacco products away from people. This character came about because a friend was telling me about all of the races in D&D, and when he said tabaxi, I looked at him and asked if it was a tobacco plant. I love making characters and playing around with character concepts. A concept I came up with was a concept for a gnome knight, back during the 3.5 era, but it doesn't end there. The idea behind the character is that before any of the other PCs meet him, there are stories about he's one of the best fighters around and the pinnacle of a combatant, but at no point do they actually hear what race he is or how high he is. So it results in them expecting someone bigger when they meet a gnome in heavy armor wielding weapons sized for races noticeably bigger than himself. I never actually got to play this character. I'm looking for the right time to drop this character into a campaign and just have a load of fun. Also, back during the 3.5 era, my brother and I came up with the concept of a hippie elf druid that managed to get himself so high on marijuana that he somehow managed to get a sentient marijuana plant and a magical owl. The owl also gets high with the elf as his druidic animal companions. The owl had the ability to create an AoE version of Otto's irresistible dance, oh no, and the marijuana plant came of being the most articulate among the three, even going as far as making reference to the University of Berkeley. Currently, 5th edition doesn't allow this sort of character anymore because druids don't get animal companions anymore. There might be an archetype that changes at some point in the future, but current 5th edition doesn't allow that without some serious homebrewing, and the DM's okay. My furbolg named Wisteria. She was a druid, undead warlock, assassin rogue. A member of an assassin's guild and daughter of followers of Talona, but focusing on healing poison and disease. She loves creating poisons and trying to cure them. Sometimes she tests them on herself just for fun. Bald, except for a thick ponytail coming out of the center of her head, she happily eats whatever she can get her hands on, even if it's deadly. She doesn't care about her own survival much. The only campaign I got to try her in was Strahd. Upon meeting him, the DM said I knew what he was, so she asked for some of his drink and was disappointed when she got a glass of wine. She then let a vampire spawn bite her to see what would happen. We broke apart as we were about to track down some werewolves, and she had every intention of getting bitten just to see how it would feel. Also, her favorite snack was apple seeds that she ate all day. Dehem Guy, Duke of Nukem. Also known as Doom Guy, Duke Nukem. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, back at it again to check in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, to subscribe, and to ring that bell to get notified whenever we post a brand new video, or in case we go live. Though, if you'd like to catch us live, do so on our Twitch, which will be linked in the description below. If you have a story you'd like to submit to us, please do so over on our subreddit r/MrRipper, and if you'd like to come check out more content by us, you can check out our TikTok, which I'm sure will be linked in the description below too. And if you want to come say hi to me, Brian Von VA, you can do so on YouTube or on Twitch, following the same handle. That being said, I always want to end things on a positive, and today is no different. I just want to say, no matter how wacky the world is, no matter how bad you're feeling, you will always find a way to get better or to have a better life. It may take some time, it may take some finesse, and you may have to rig the world a little bit in your favor, but it can and will happen. You just have to believe. So keep going strong, stay hydrated, stay happy, stay healthy, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.